In this video, we're going to be talking about the hang muscle snatch, how to do it, some common mistakes to watch out for, and how it can be beneficial incorporated into your programming. The first thing we need to address when talking about the hang muscle snatch is our grip and our grip width. So our grip is going to be outside of the rings of the bar, and it's going to be your regular snatch grip. If you're already familiar with what your snatch grip is, you're going to use the exact same grip for your muscle snatch. If you're not familiar with that, what you want to do is you want to jump into the power position, right? So feet about hip width apart, shoulders back, chest up, and just a slight 2-3 inch bend of the knee. So from the power position here, we're scrolled up a little bit. The bar should sit right into the crease of the hip, okay? If my hands are too close together, the bar will be down my thigh too far. All right, and vice versa. If my hands are too wide, the bar is going to be up around my waist more. I want to be in the power position, and I want the bar to be sitting about right in the crease of the hip, okay? Now for the grip itself, I'm using a hook grip. All right, so I'm taking my thumb, wrapping it around the bar first, and wrapping my fingers over top of my thumb. All right, if you're doing any kind of Olympic lifting within your programming, highly, highly recommend learning how to use a hook grip. It's going to be really uncomfortable at first, but then using that hook grip because it's going to be a tremendously beneficial for your grip strength, okay? So now, once we have our grip figured out, we're going to start in that same power position. So feet about hip width apart, shoulders back, chest up, slight bend of the knee, wrist curled. And now from this position, I'm going to hinge at the hips by pushing my hips back, letting my shoulders come forward. All right, and from this position, right above the knee, my shoulders should be over the bar, back should be flat, core should be braced. All right, and then from here, I'm going to aggressively extend through my hips, knees, and ankles. I'm going to triple extend. I'm going to big shrug at the top. My elbows are going to break out to the side. And then I'm going to finish fully extended at the top, okay? If you are familiar with snatches, this is going to be the big difference in the movement is that finish position, okay? So if you're used to a regular hang snatch or a hang power snatch where you're shifting and dropping under the bar, where you're shifting and dropping all the way into that full overhead squat position, all right? The hang muscle snatch, we're going to be finishing and fully extended at the top. So that leads me right into how hang muscle snatches can be beneficial within your programming. So when I'm programming from athletes, I'll use the hang muscle snatch in two different places, both for the same reason. The first spot I'll use it is right at the start of a new off season. So if I'm programming for a football player, we're just coming off of the end season. We're starting that new off-season cycle in January. For the first couple weeks of that off-season program, I'll incorporate some hang muscle snatches into the program just to re-emphasize and even overemphasize that full extension through the hips, knees, and ankles. All right, that full, as we're snatching and cleaning and getting competitive in the weight room, sometimes what will happen is we start to cut our pull short because we're in too big of a rush to try to catch the bar. Well, now we're missing the reason why we do Olympic lifts with athletes in the first place, and that is to work on that explosive triple extension that's going to carry you over to the football field, all right, or the basketball court, or whatever sport that you're playing. The other place that I'll use it, and for the exact same reason, is at the beginning of a workout, or especially on an Olympic lifting day, of part of what I call like a barbell warm-up. So let's say a snatch complex, where we're doing a few reps of hang muscle snatch, maybe a few reps of behind the neck presses, and a few reps of overhead squat. So that barbell warm-up just quickly emphasizes that triple extension that will lead right into our Olympic lift that we're doing next, whether it's a snatch or a clean variation. And it just kind of works us through some ranges of motion. So we're getting a full extension there, behind the neck press, getting some shoulder range of motion, and then with the overhead squat, obviously getting all the range of motion that you get with an overhead squat. So now let's talk about a few common mistakes to watch out for when you're doing hang muscle snatches, all right? And a lot of these mistakes are the same kind of mistakes that you're going to run into with doing any kind of a snatch, all right? And the first one is rocking, right, and not keeping a braced core from the starting position. So all too often what I'll see, all right, is athletes wanting to kind of rock down and rock up, you know, quickly into their hang snatch and not wanting to get set at the bottom. And when you have lightweight, you can get away with it. If you're a really advanced lifter, you can get away with it. But what happens, especially with athletes without a lot of a training experience, is when you rock down and then you go to rock up, you lose that integrity, right, in your back and your core, and that core comes loose, all right, and you lose that neutral spine, and that's when you can really tweak something or really mess something up in your back. So make sure that you're bracing the core, that you're getting set, that your back is flat, and you're coming down, getting in a good set position, and then driving from that starting position. The second mistake, which is probably the most common mistake, is that when I strike the bar with the hips, I let that bar get way too far away from me in front. All right, so as I come, I want to get a little bit of a strike on the bar with my hips, but that bar should stay close to the body and straight up and overhead. And what I see all too often is that strike of the hips leads that bar to go way out away from the body, right? And then the athlete ends up having to like basically go into an arc motion, and they lose their balance at the top with it. A lot of lifts are lost that way because they're just out of control here. So if you're striking the hip, once you strike the hip, keep the bar super tight to the body. Bar should come right in front of the face, and then finish over the top fully extended. The last mistake that I'll address, all right, I'm going to put the bar down for a second. I'm going to grab a PVC pipe. The last mistake is, and especially this happens when you start to get a little too heavy with your muscle snatches, is instead of pulling high and then rotating to the finish, all right, we bring our elbows underneath way too soon, and it turns more into a push at the top to finish, all right? When it starts to get a little grindy and it starts to get a little heavy, all right, we'll flip underneath and then we'll push to extend to the finish, all right? Not the purpose of it. So as I drive through the hips, full extension, elbows come high, 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 and then rotate and catch at the top, all right? So make sure you don't have to get super heavy with your muscle snatches. Keep them on the lighter side, keep them fast, keep them explosive. Good triple extension, good hip drive, pull super high, and then snap off that catch at the top position. And that's how you do a hang muscle snatch.